Welcome to another midweek motivation. Now, I have taken the last 2 weeks off because I've been extremely busy working on projects and different things. So I didn't want to miss this week because this week's midweek motivation, it almost mirrors my life over the past couple of months. And it has challenged me to a point where I've got to a place where I was just feeling completely lost. And so I want to talk to you guys about that, share with you a little bit about what I am currently going through and how we can all find resolution in this. And so this week we're going to unearth something that is vital to our soul's journey, specifically my soul journey and definitely yours. So we're talking about finding peace in the pivot. And rest assured that the divine God is right here, right in the mix, stirring the pot of our transformative gumbo. Now, those that know and those that follow me know that I am from New Orleans, Louisiana. So gumbo is synonymous with being a Cajun girl or being from the heart of New Orleans. And so I definitely wanted to utilize that as a basis for where we are going. So let me pause for a moment and just ask a question. Have you ever felt like you were in a blender and it's on full power and you're spinning and you're spinning and you're spinning and you're spinning and you cannot seem to find your footing? 1 minute you're cruising on a path you thought was straight and narrow, and then boom, a twist, a turn, a pivot. But I don't want you to get flustered. I don't want you to get overwhelmed. And I'm talking to myself here. But I don't want you to get to a place where you are ready to just throw in a towel and give up. So today, we're going to peel back the layers of these life-altering moments, these divine detours, to find the place or to find the peace that seems to be tucked away in these moments of chaos. I'll even put it this way, of planned chaos. And so let's go to point one. Now, for those that follow me know that I like to give practical steps, but I also like to give practical resolutions, because sometimes just listen to someone talk is not enough. Sometimes you want to be able to write things down or put things in steps, because not everybody learns the same way. And so these steps are just small pebbles tossed into a large pond, and hopefully my prayer is that the ripple effect from it is so significant that it gives you a solution to finding peace in your own pivot. And so point one, I want to talk about recognizing the pivot as a spiritual signal, right? Because every pivot, every detour is nothing but a direction change. If you've ever used a GPS and you've come to a place of detour, it always tells you that you have to turn either right or left to go to the detour, but that detour will always lead you back to the path to your destination. And so we have to recognize that the pivot is not here to disrupt or destroy, but is here as a spiritual signal. So first and foremost, recognizing this pivot as a spiritual signal allows God to speak to you. And when you find your direction changing unexpectedly, don't resist. Because most of the time, that's the first thing that we do. It's the easiest thing to do. It's just to I'm not doing this, right? But don't resist. However, listen, because there's a message, a lesson, and a blessing in the shift. Take a moment every single day, specifically when you're going through these pivots or these detours, find you a quiet space and ask yourself one question. And that question is, what is this change or this pivot trying to teach me? And then allow your spirit to speak. And then take notes as you are allowing your spirit to speak, because it's your personal conversation with God. And I want us to get to a place that when we find ourselves in these uncomfortable positions, versus resisting, we listen and we ask the question again: what is this change or this pivot teaching me? What am I supposed to learn out of this? What am I supposed to get out of this? Steve Harvey says it best, and I literally live by this on a day-to-day basis. And that is, pain always leaves a gift. Uncertainties always leaves a gift. Detours, pivots always leaves a gift, because at the end of the day, everything is always working out for us. And when you realize that, even in those moments of pivot, you still realize that this, no matter what direction I am tossed into, and no matter what turn I have to take, it will always lead me back to the direction and the path that I'm supposed to be on. So point 2 is to anchor yourself in timeless truths. Ground yourself in timeless truths. You see, the world changes, life pivots, life lives, things, right? But there are eternal truths that remain constant. And that eternal truth, as I just said earlier, is everything is always working out for us. So when you're going through those moments, even in your daily prayer time, your daily meditation time, always remember, walk away saying everything is always working out for me. That's your timeless truth, because it doesn't matter what you're dealing with. It's remembering that everything is always working out for me. So when you're trying to figure out how to find peace in your pivot, it's recognizing that even in the pivot, everything is always working out for me. So you find scriptures or affirmations or some type or spiritual quotes that resonates with your heart. You read them daily, recite them daily. Let them be your grounding force, reminding you of who you truly are. And you are a divine being, a spiritual being, having an earthly experience on a human journey. That's who you are. So again, in those moments, in those times of meditation, you always want to remember that everything is always working out for me. Point 3 is to adjust your steps with intention and prayer. So once you've grounded yourself, as we talked about, grounding yourself in the timeless truths, right? Once you've grounded yourself, now it's time to adjust your steps, but do it with intentions and with prayer. Because remember, every step you take is sacred, because everything is always working out for you. So when you're in those moments of the pivot, you have to be cautious that even knowing that everything is working out for us, you still have to allow yourself to be guided by the truth, right? Still make sure that you are being guided by the divine one, be guided by God, because every step that you take is sacred. So you don't have time to play around with your pivot or to gamble it or jeopardize it. You want to be very intentional. Remember that word, intention. You want to be very intentional about where you plant your feet, because every step that you take is sacred. How do we do this? Every morning, before you step out into the world and before the world pulls you in different directions, just sit quietly. Sit quietly with God. Sit quietly in your prayer time, in your meditation. Offer your day, your plans, and your pivots to God in prayer. You have to feel the guidance and adjust your actions accordingly. Something that I've started doing probably about within the last 2 years or so, when I find myself worrying or, not really certain of what's going on, I always invite God into my situation. I think Jonathan McReynolds sings a song that talks about inviting God into your situation. And so this is what point 3 is saying. Point 3 is saying that every day, before you step out into the world, You offer your day, your plans, and your pivots to God. In other words, you're telling God, God, I invite you into this day. I invite your guidance into my plans. I invite your directions into my pivots. Because once we learn to invite God into our situation, because remember, God is not expecting us to come to him perfect. That is not what he's asking for. He does not ask for perfection. He asks for us to come to him broken. It's in the brokenness where we find healing, right? It's in the pivot where we find direction. And so you want to go into it again, offering your day to God, inviting him into your day, inviting him into your plans, inviting him into your certain uncertainties, your pivots, your greatness, your happy times, your sad times, and everything in between. Because when you do that, you're able to adjust your actions according to the direction of the divine. Now, point 4, step 4, it tells us to embrace peace by staying connected to the source. And who is the source? God. So in all things, embrace peace. Not the peace that the world gives us, right? But the deep, abiding peace that comes from staying connected to God. And how do we do this? We cultivate this connection with God. Whether it's through meditation, whether it's through listening to music, listening for God's voice, walking in nature, connecting with your spirit. But you have to be, again, intentional about making it a daily practice, because it becomes your anchor in times of pivot. You know, it's one of those things where the more you practice it, the more it becomes an innate trait, right? It almost becomes almost seared to your DNA. It's like when it's like a person who utilizes alcohol or utilizes drugs, and they didn't start out like that. But as life became overwhelming, they started using these other negative coping methods. And they used it so much, they practiced it so much that they got to a place where they couldn't live without it. And that's how it is with having a relationship with God. The more you cultivate it, the more you practice it, and the more you utilize it, the more you lean on it and you depend on it, the more it becomes something that is seared to your DNA, the more it becomes something that you can't live without, but more importantly, something that you don't want to live without. So remember, every pivot, every shift, and every change is God's way of saying, I have something greater for you. This is why it's so important that we trust in God, we lean into God, lean on God, and grow through what we're dealing with. Because as you pivot, may you find peace, and may your peace be your constant companion. Because honey, if we're going to do this thing called life, we might as well do it well. Thank you again for sharing this space with me, this sacred time of our midweek motivation. Until we meet again, I want you to stay blessed, stay grounded, be at peace. More importantly, I want you to continue to grow, continue to love, and continue to be the very best that you can be. This is your girl, Tymika with the Y, coming to you from the newest and hottest podcast, the Tymika with the Y podcast show. As always, smooches and deuces. Have a purposeful and a masterful day. God bless.